Now, speaking of the papers, I start you off with the Daily Nation, briefly running you through the front page, starting with the story here on the header, Sermons on the Mount. This is in regards to the ongoing campaign trails, and Ruto continues to sustain his attack on quote-unquote ungrateful Kenyatta in a whirlwind in the Mount Kenya tour, as Raila also asks the region to return him the favor for backing presidential candidates, or rather their local presidential candidates, in the previous elections. And this goes back to 2002 when Raila said Kibaki Tosha, and he is now bringing this conversation back, asking the Mount Kenya residents to return the favor and vote for him these elections. On the other hand, Ruto told the people that Kenyatta would not have been president without his support, and therefore he should not be blocking his quest to succeed him as the next president, and should keep off all succession politics and let him, that is Ruto, battle it out with Raila Odinga. Away from that, coming to the main read here on the front page, where Tangula's link to the ballot printer. This is a story that has been covered in great detail here on this particular daily. It focuses on the question of whether there could be a scandal in the making in regards to the multi-million shilling tender that was given to a Greek firm that would be printing the election materials, as it has emerged. And this is according to a conversation that was brought up by the Azimio team that urged IEBC as well as DCI and EACC to look into this situation, looking at the tender, the 3 billion tender that was awarded to a Greek firm to supply the election materials, considering in January of last year, where Tangula had invited 3 Greeks who have been linked to this particular firm on a mission that was termed an investment opportunity meeting. So they asked these particular agencies to look into that. And finally, fear of packed presidential race as court reverses rules. The court yesterday, and following a judgment that was delivered by Justice Anthony Mrima, quashed the regulations that were enacted by IEBC in 2012 and amended in 2017, requiring presidential aspirants to submit the identification documents of their supporters. So this is sort of going to stir up the waters, considering some candidates were locked out due to not, or rather, providing this particular document. So the question remains, will they be allowed back, or the printing of the ballot papers will continue? Victor.
On the front page of the Star newspaper, revealed Uhuru men who will steer handover. Uhuru men who will steer handover. Team's top bureaucrats don't see eye to eye with Ruto, whose team wants fairness. Now, I say that there are some questions which are about whether powerful individuals would hand over power to Deputy President William Ruto. And on the front page there, we have got 2 pictures of the 2 gentlemen. That is Deputy President William Ruto and Honorable Raila Odinga taking their campaigns to different parts of this country. How Taita Taveta turned dry land into cash cow through groundnuts. You can take a look at that story in details. Kenya third worldwide in teen pregnancies, according to the Ministry of Health. Data shows that 1 in every 5 adolescent girls is pregnant. The data shows that it was also revealed that at least 98 children aged between 10 to 19 are infected with HIV and AIDS on a weekly basis in Kenya. That is a worrying statistics there. And the government also, the data from the government also showed that 1 in every 5 adolescent girls in the country was pregnant or already had their first child, aged between 10 and 19. That is a worrying trend. All right, very quickly, who are the names and the team behind President Uhuru Kenyatta's power handover event? Part of the mandate of the team, to be headed by the head of civil service, that is Joseph Kinyua, is to ensure that the president-elect receives security briefings from the national security organs, including the military and the National Intelligence Service. Now, other members of the committee are Interior CS Fred Matiang'i, he is PS Karanza Kibisho, Inspector General of Police, that is Hilary Mutiambai, Chief of the Kenya Defence Forces Robert Kiboshi, Director of National Intelligence Service Philip Kameru, Chief Registrar of the Judiciary Anne Amadi, and State House Comptroller Kinothia Mbugwa. And the list continues there. You can take a look at that particular story there. And also Parliament will also have two representatives, that is the Clerk of the National Assembly as well as Clerk of the Senate and CEO of the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee. All right, on some politics, return quote-unquote Kibaki, Tosha favor, Raila urges Mount Kenya voters. He says that the region is indebted to him, promises to safeguard President Uhuru Kenyatta's legacy. And finally, Waititu bought 380 million shillings City Hotel, yet to clear 29 million shillings balance. Ex-governor's family in talks with businesswoman to complete payment for Delta House. This is among some of the corruption cases that has dotted Governor Waititu for better part of the years. And the story has it that Delta Hotel is still in question. And the suspect in Nakuru women murders detained for 14 days. Detectives say that they want to conduct DNA and mental assessment of the 6 men arrested in connection with the killings before they are charged. And the police say that they will do everything to make sure that that area is pacified. Doreen.
Now, NCAC flags 31 cases of hate speech. These are linked to political campaign rallies, and also just going by what NCAC is saying is that out of these 31 cases that have been flagged by this particular institution, the Kenya Kwanza Jacaranda rally contributes to the highest number of the cases that were recorded there. Remember that also this has been an recommendation by the international bodies as it pertains to this coming general election, whereby leaders as well as the various political parties need to ensure that they keep peace, because it is necessary as we head over to the polls. And also, hearing of Sonko case seeking to overturn IEBC decision is set to start today. That case is set to kick off today. And you can also remember that so far, the High Court has actually instructed IEBC not to print the ballot papers, particularly for the Mombasa gubernatorial race, up until the former Nairobi governor exhausts all forms of appeal, as it actually is within the law. And so this is set to begin today. We are set to see how all this will pan out. And also the judges noted that noted issues raised by Sonko in his application were of public interest and therefore required to be interrogated. And this is why they've also instructed the IEBC, to do that in terms of not printing ballot papers for Mombasa gubernatorial race. So even as this is happening, might there just be new hurdle brewing and for the IEBC, so to speak, given the fact that, again, the same court has declared unconstitutional the regulation or the requirement that they had presented to the candidates to submit the 2,000 signatures. Well, that so far, the 4 presidential candidates have already been gazetted, and even as we speak, IBC is currently printing ballot paper. So what does this mean? Might we be seeing more than the 4 presidential candidates in the ballot paper? Might they be going back in respect to ensure that, since High Court has overturned this declaration, might they just be considering some of these candidates, particularly those that were independent? And lastly, expressway crashes now worries engineers. This is just in a span of 2 weeks, whereby 2 accidents have been recorded in the same place, that is around the Mlolongo toll station. And so even as it turns out, the Monday accident has been blamed on speeding and possible mechanical problem on the bus. And again, just to give to you is that so far, in terms of the fines that you would perhaps be required to pay if at all any accident occurs around the expressway, it is in millions, and the damaging the toll booth on the Nairobi Expressway attracts a fine of between 1.32 million 1.8 million, and damaging the camera in the toll collection plaza bears a fine of 600,000, while destroying the street lights cost between 143,000 and 262,000 depending on the type of light. So that is what comes out, particularly in terms of any accident that is caused along the expressway. So that this just means that this just is not any other kind of road whereby an accident would occur, and that's just that, but also this attracts fine in respect to what is destroyed after that accident occurs. Regina.
Now let's pick it up from matters of the expressway, just to highlight that news in. We have news in regard to what is happening along the expressway is that a 33-seater matatu has just overturned at the entrance of the Nairobi Expressway in Westlands. Now, while engineers are questioning exactly what is happening on this piece of infrastructure that was open to the public and put in place to ease congestion within the central business district, well, it is becoming a source of accidents and losses therein. That is just news in. A 33-seater matatu overturned at the entrance of the Nairobi Expressway in Westlands. Now, having a sneak peek of the daily that I have with me today is the Standard. And your guess is as good as mine. With 33 days to the general election, we're talking about the campaign trail and now the high cost of the presidential spot. We have been seeing what we thought was bromance between the president and his deputy has deteriorated, and they no longer see eye to eye. And this is causing jitters, with clergy saying and warning that this might actually go a long way to have a political, or rather bridge the divide. Who is going to bridge the divide? And I can quote a few leaders who've come out to also weigh in on this conversation. We have Justin Muturi, who is a National Assembly Speaker. He said, I took the trouble to look for former Cardinal Njoe to form a small team to reconcile them, while at the same time Edwin Sifuna, who is the ODM Secretary General, his comments in regard to the divide between the president and his deputy. He says the DP and his allies have thrown vitriol at the president, depicting him as someone who is lazy and being forced to do his jobs. So who will stop the escalating feud between Uhuru and Ruto? That's the big read on this particular paper, as well as looking now at where the IBC finds itself in regard to that ruling that was made by the judges yesterday. Now, according to the judge, that is Anthony Mrima, IBC was in breach of the Data Protection Act, and aspirants are not authorized by law to collect data. Some critics and political analysts have come to say that this particular move by the courts might as well just give a lifeline to the independent candidates. And one of the independent candidates who is now pushing this a bit further is Ekuro Okot, who has called for the resignation of the IBC chair on claims that he failed to interpret the law correctly. Also on human interest is the life and times of fallen Nairobi half-life star. If you've never watched that film, well, it's a film to watch, especially when we're talking about matters of security within the central business district. This is a tribute made to him, and you can get further details on our website. I'm Regina Manyara, and I wish you a pleasant viewing ahead, leaving you the capable hands of Victor Olo to take you through matters politics in not too long.